Yo, what is going on, everybody? It is GareTheBear, and welcome back to another episode of the GareTheBear Show podcast. And today, I am joined with the Roaming Eye, or AKA Mom,
Hello.
AKA travel blogger, owner of multiple businesses. How's it going?
Good. It's going great. Great. Thanks for having me.
Yep, I'm excited to have this little conversation. I've got lots of good questions for you.
Cool.
So, obviously, a lot of this stuff, since she's my mom, obviously I know quite a bit of this stuff, some of it. But there's also some perspectives, some context that I'm not entirely aware of. So hopefully today I'll be able to gain some insight on your adventures, on your just life in general. So
Sure.
first is the grand question: how long have you been traveling the world? Because most of your excitement and a lot of your things that you talk to people about and that you blog about is your travels. So how long have you been traveling the world?
Well, I would say my very first. Now, do you mean in general or solo? Because most of my traveling is solo.
Well, I would say just in general, in the grand scheme, just like as much as how long have you actively been pursuing exploration of this world?
Okay, so my very first big, I would say, trip was it was my very first international trip, and it was in 2014 was when I went to London by myself. And before then, I'll travel different places here and there, but nothing for longer than maybe a weekend or a couple days. But this was my very first big trip by myself, and I went to London, and it was phenomenal. And I think that trip right there was what hooked me on international travel and travel solo.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like that's the one that got you hooked on it, and you were addicted.
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with the city. I've since been back to London, I think, at least 4 more times. It's my favorite city in the whole world. Yeah.
And that kind of opened your eyes to just see what other things there are to experience. And
absolutely.
Being able to see other cultures beside your own. Like, it's probably really, really insightful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was probably, you took a plane, obviously. You didn't take a ferry or a boat or anything. So
No.
No. So what was in all of your trips, what is the longest amount of time you've ever spent on a plane?
When I went to Australia, I was on a I was on a plane for 16 hours.
Wow.
That was the longest flight I've ever done. I flew from Chicago to LAX, and then from LAX to Melbourne, Australia. And so it was a 16-hour flight from LAX to Melbourne. And that was going there wasn't as bad as coming home. Coming home was really weird because, going there you lost a day because you crossed the date line. Mm-hmm. And coming back, you gain the day back, which is really weird. It messes with your mind because that morning I left Australia. I saw the sunrise. Ooh. Then I saw the sunrise again in California. So it was really weird because you see, it's just, it's weird. Yeah. So that was the longest flight ever. It was 16 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, that must have just completely thrown you for a loop.
I
would be exhausted the next day. I wouldn't sleep right for a week. I feel
that was a very exhausting flight. Coming back felt more exhausting, and I think it was because it was mental exhaustion more than the physical part. Because really, when you lose hours, that's harder than when you gain hours, in my opinion.
Yeah. Everyone's
different, but for me, it's harder to recover when I lose hours versus when I gain hours. So
I can see that. That makes sense. And a lot of that mental exhaustion, there's a lot of mentality that goes into traveling.
Yes.
You have to be in a proper mindset, or you can't really experience as much as you would if you, say, had more of a closed off mindset and were just kind of going just to go. I feel like the experience is a lot in your mindset more than anything.
Yeah, it is. And I try every one of my trips because of my 2 businesses. One in particular, my life is run by scheduling. So I schedule appointments but every hour, every 30 minutes. So my life is very rigid when I'm not traveling. So when I'm traveling, I try to make sure that I'm extremely present. I maybe plan one thing, if that, while I'm on vacation, but the rest of the time I'm just in the moment, and whatever the moment calls me to do, I guess, or whatever I'm feeling like that morning when I wake up is what I do. And so that keeps me present, and that keeps me in the mindset. Like, I'm never going to be one of those people that comes back from vacation and says, I need a vacation from my vacation. Mm-hmm. And when people say that, I'm like, you're not doing it right then. Yeah. You're not doing it right. You've missed the boat somewhere on that vacation. Right. So, yeah.
You ought to come back feeling fulfilled, like you've gained something in your life.
Absolutely.
As opposed to having to get back to the normal.
Well, as opposed to feeling so rushed and exhausted from do, go.
Right.
And you know what? Good for you if that's the kind of way you like to vacation. Good for you, not for me. I have got to completely unwind and completely just disconnect from the everyday life and just be present in what I'm experiencing, and just to get the most out of it. For me, that's how I have to do it.
Right. And a lot of these trips are one time, except for London, of course. You can go back every weekend if you had the opportunity.
If I could, yeah.
But a lot of these are one-time deals. Like, you'll go for a week, 2 weeks, and then like you'll experience as much as you can, take as much in as you can, because that's probably the last time you'll be there.
Right.
And so, does that ever cross your mind, like, I'll never be here again, so let's do as much as possible, even though, if it's expensive or if it's risky or whatever, like, you just take in as much as you can because it may not be another thing.
Yeah, I do. I try to, when I travel, I try to. First of all, I try to be as small as possible, meaning I don't stay in hotels. I don't stay in populated areas like touristy traps. I try to stay off the beaten path. I try to stay in an Airbnb because I want to experience the culture and experience whatever city I'm in, whatever town I'm in, like a local. So I like to stay like they stay, live like a local, basically, eat like a local, all of that. So because of that very reason, I may never be there again. And so I really, truly want to get the full experience, not just what is in the ad campaign or not what's in the brochure or anything like that.
The brochures are awfully buttered up and clickbaity most of the time.
Yeah,
anyway.
Exactly.
Now, you said you stayed in a lot of Airbnbs, and I've experienced Airbnb with you. And Airbnb is a very, very awesome thing. And it's so very underrated, I feel, because it's like really cheap, and it's basically like living at home.
Well, it's funny. A lot of people, it's really, really popular. So I wouldn't say it's underrated, but because it's extremely popular. But it's one of those things that still there's so many people that don't know what there is to offer in Airbnb and how you can really tailor it to what you need. Right. So, for example, when I took your sister to London, we wanted our own space. We didn't want just a room in someone's house or just a room in someone's apartment. So we got an entire flat to us, just for us. And you can tailor your search for what you're looking for. There's filters and things like that. And it's so inexpensive. You can get rooms. I've had rooms for myself, just a room, and I had a private bathroom for less than $50 a night.
See, so that's crazy. And like the underratedness to me of it is the fact that not many people understand still, like, that's so available. Yeah. And it's so inexpensive. Like, it's so underrated in that aspect where, like, people are going to, expensive hotels and things like that still, where Airbnb is so readily available for you to tailor to all your needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I, knock on wood, I have never had a negative experience with a host. I have been so fortunate and so blessed with some amazing hosts along the way, and I've met some people. I still stay in touch with some of them, but they have been incredible human beings that have really, truly shown their heart and given their heart while I was staying in their home, and it's been just amazing. Yeah,
there's a lot of good people out there. Now,
yes, absolutely.
What do you think of all your Airbnb experiences? You said you haven't had a really bad one, but what has been like your absolute, like, top of the notch, like, favorite ever Airbnb experience?
That would probably be a tie. I had two ladies that were absolutely amazing. The host I had in Ireland, her name was Roisin, and she was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And it was funny because she had a long-term guest staying in one of her rooms, and then I was renting the other room. And it just so happened every morning I would get up and have my tea and breakfast or whatever, and she was always up about the same time. So we would always share what we were doing for the day. She would ask me if I had any plans, and she would give me little ideas while we had our tea and breakfast and stuff. And she even volunteered to pick me up. One day I went and took the train. I took the train to a different city, and I can't remember. I took the train somewhere else, and so I had to take a bus and then take a train. So she offered, instead of me taking the bus and the train when I got home, to just pick me up from the train station and skip the whole bus ride, because she knew it would be late, and she said, you'll be exhausted, I'll just collect you. And so I had her phone number, and I called her, and she was so gracious and so kind. And so she was one of my favorites. And then another favorite was, I've lost her name. I just lost it. I can see her face. She was my host in Australia. She was phenomenal. She took me on a driving tour of the architecture in some of the old suburbs of Melbourne. And I actually took a blog of it. We blogged and vlogged while she was doing it. And I have it on my, I put it on my YouTube, not my YouTube, on my, yeah.
You put one on your
I was
YouTube,
on my,
yeah.
I think it was on my YouTube, but I know it was on my Instagram. And then I blogged about it. She was amazing. I wish I could figure out Lorraine, that was her name. Sorry. She was amazing. She was so kind, and it seemed that it was the same way. Every morning we would talk about what we were doing, my day. She gave me all kinds of tips, and then we talked about traveling, because she was working on a travel website thing for travelers for New York City, because she loves New York City, kind of like how I love London. So I would say of all the hosts, I've had some phenomenal ones, but those two ladies stick out the most in my memory.
Like there's no bad ones. They're all good. There's just some that go above and beyond.
And those two I would have to say were top notch, top of the line.
And so you've had some really good experience with your hosts, but how about just people you've met that aren't necessarily involved in your Airbnb experience, like just local people or just regular old civilians you've met? What is like your number one most memorable interaction with a person? Of any trip, in country or abroad, just
oh wow, I'm gonna have to think about that one for a second.
Because you've had a ton of.
I forgot about my host in Madrid. He was also phenomenal. He was really neat. It was a father-son duo, and the father was the one I really connected with. Yeah. Anyway, any just random person.
Like if somebody you just met walking around and they talked to you or showed you something or. Just some.
Well, person. I would have to say, in Australia, I met several people on this tour. I had booked a tour of the 12 Apostles, and so I befriended some people on the tour bus. On the bus, we had lunch and all that sort of thing. And one of the girls that I befriended, her name was Hannah, and she, unbeknownst to me at the time, is an author, and she sent me 2 of her books when we opened the coffee shop.
Really?
Yeah, so she sent those to me. She reached out to me on Messenger, and because she and I connected, and so we exchanged socials, and there was a couple others that we did that too. But she reached out to me and saw where I was going to open a bookstore, sent me her 2 books, so that was really cool.
Huh.
I would say the 2 gentlemen that I met when I was in Morocco. When I was in Morocco, I booked a photo tour in Chefchaouen, which is the Blue City.
I like that. I like those pictures.
Yes. Little side note, Chefchaouen, Morocco is the 3rd most Instagram city in the world.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah, those photographs are amazing. So I booked a tour with these 2 brothers, and they had they do Airbnb experiences, and they did this photo tour and walking tours throughout the whole Chefchaouen little village. And so getting to talk to them was really enlightening, because they shared like what everyday life is in Morocco, which is an Arabic country, and everything. Like that was the one country that was probably the most raw and the most my money went the furthest there. $1 is I think $1 was 10 dirham. So like I bought a scarf for 50 dirham.
So that's only like $5 American.
And it was $5, yeah. So your dollar goes a lot further there, and so they were sharing some of their stories and their struggles as young entrepreneurs in a basically, Arabic country, and it was so enlightening because everyone I met, I will say this about Chefchaouen, everyone I met in it's this really small little village, everyone I met was so kind and so helpful and so just warm, and it was like you you were a long lost guest. They were so kind. So I would say that experience, and just I did get to interact with some few people in that town, and they were all just so nice, so thoughtful, and just it was nice. It was a nice city. It was very eye opening and very pleasant. I was pleasantly surprised. I'll put it that way.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Now, it would, like, this kind of goes on the same kind of plane as that question.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like a really memorable experience with people.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one that's had, that's really resonated and had a lasting impact? Like, you say, like, in your life, you've done something differently because of certain group of people or certain people you've interacted with.
Wow.
These are getting deep.
Yeah, they are.
They're getting good. They're
wow,
getting good.
Wow. Something different, like change the way I've done, like change my own.
Change the way you kind of see life or see things in general. Like change your perspective on certain things because you are exposed to different ways that people do things or.
Sure. Okay. Well, I would say that coming back, my last trip I went to Alaska. And that's not international or anything, but things are done very differently in Alaska, even though it's still in the United States. I stayed at a dry cabin, a tiny house, so there was no running water. They supplied us 5 gallons of water every day, and we had an outhouse, and it was very clean, and I couldn't believe it. But anyway, the way I had to conserve the water while there really opened my eyes into ways, like since I've come home, I've been more cognizant of my water use. So I'm making note of, okay, Hillary, you don't need to use that much water. You survived on a day, every day. You survived on 2.5 gallons of water a day in Alaska. You can do a lot less. Like, you don't need that much water when you wash dishes. I don't need to take that long of a shower. And just different things. It opened my eyes to ways I can be more eco-conscious. Mm-hmm. Not because anybody preached at me or gave me an overt message, but it was a this is how it had to be. This was all I had. I had to conserve. It was an example set. Right, exactly. So I would say that's the most recent thing I can think of because I have been trying to, use less and all that. So
people are always concerned about recycling, I feel like, more than any of that kind of stuff, but nobody ever pays a whole lot of mind to the water usage. People use so much water.
Oh, we are so wasteful when it comes to water.
Yeah. I mean, you got to drink X amount of fluid ounces of water a day, but like there's a lot of things
and that's where I used the most water was drinking it because it was so dry. We had to drink. I wanted to make sure I was drinking plenty of water. Right. But then, like when we would do dishes, we were so like it was a dribble. We would dribble it in water.
Like you just spot clean all your dishes.
Basically. So it made me open my eyes to how wasteful, and I felt like I, generally speaking, do a pretty good job of not being wasteful when it comes to water and resources and things. But even I thought, oh my gosh, I could do better. Right. I can do so much better. So
I feel like there's always better. You always do better with anything.
Mm-hmm.
So with the water scarcity, I wouldn't say it was scarcity. It was more like a limitation.
Well, they don't have a lot of wells because it gets so cold. I don't think
freezes.
I don't think they can dig wells as many. So there's so many things that they don't have running water. They may have water tanks and then they make a system in their house that way. But they don't have like what we have traditional wells.
But it's more limited because they have to conserve it and make tanks instead of just being able to pull it up at will without it freezing.
Sure.
So with that in mind, what kind of stuff did you guys eat there?
In Alaska?
Like in that house, in that little area, yeah.
Well, we went to the grocery store like you normally do.
Oh, so it was just...
we had a full kitchen, so like we went to things were a lot more expensive when we were staying there versus staying in the city, Fairbanks.
I can imagine.
But, everything we ate like what we normally would eat. We bought hamburger one night, made hamburgers, we had chicken, we had spaghetti squash, vegetables, just whatever. Things were just higher and there were fewer choices in the smaller towns because I think a lot of the grocery stores, if you're not in a big city, things are higher because they have to fly them in or they have to boat them in and ship them in.
And there's less of it available. Less supply for the demand there.
Yeah.
So on the topic of food, like all these places you've gone to, there's obviously different cultural differences as far as food specifically.
Yeah.
And plenty of them. So what's been your favorite food that you've ever eaten whether it be meal, dessert, any sort of beverage or anything, like what's been your number one that you just have to have again?
Well, there's several.
We'll just list them all off.
Well, probably one of my favorites, which is really funny because a lot of people always say that the English don't really have very good food in England. But I really like the traditional English breakfast.
I've heard that's really good.
It's really good. I think it is. It's eggs, it's bacon, but their bacon is thicker cut, so it reminds me of ham.
Yeah.
Sausages, like sausage, summer sausage type almost. It reminds me of kind of a summer sausage.
I was thinking more like hot dog type, like that kind of build.
It's more like a bratwursty kind of sausage.
Oh yeah.
And then pork and beans.
Yeah.
I know, that's weird. And then let's see, eggs, the sausage, the pork, that, all of that, and then you get like a toast or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's some sort of toast.
And then your tea. And surprisingly, the eggs with the pork and beans and the sausage and it all just works, and it's so good. And the kicker is it's so filling. It's so much food for that first meal that when I would eat an English breakfast, I didn't eat the rest of the day. I didn't have to.
Right.
Because you're getting all that meat and you're getting the eggs and the protein, and then you're getting a little carb with the beans, and they were good.
It's a nice little helping.
It was such it's kind of a hodgepodge when you look at it on your plate, but it's so good.
I can imagine that it, like you said, like you didn't have to eat the whole day.
I didn't have to eat. No, I didn't eat the whole day.
And that's I feel like that's kind of how it's
probably
designed.
why exactly why it's so huge.
Like you've got your tea, and you just sip on, water
you have your afternoon
or whatever
tea, and then that's
the whole day.
Yeah,
like, you don't have to eat very much, that's interesting.
Another meal that I really enjoyed was I can't remember what it's called. I made it. I booked an experience, learned how to make this traditional Moroccan dish, Bastille, that's what it's called. And it's, we went and bought the ingredients in the market. It's really thin phyllo dough, which is like a pastry dough. And you have the pastry dough, and you have shredded chicken that's been sauteed and cooked, and you have a sliced almonds, and it's all flavored and seasoned. And you put that in the center of the phyllo dough, and then you put the other sheet of dough on it, and you make it like a pocket, and you deep fry it.
Oh, so it's kind of like an empanada, or like a...
Kind of, but
kind of like a dumpling.
Kind of, but it's bigger. It's like
it's like that concept where there's stuff in the middle, and you kind of like.
And then when you're done, when you're finished, you scoop it out. And what he did is, a lot of people don't do this, but he the guy that I took the class from, he played on the sweet and savory. So he added sweet to it because it's kind of savory, but the dough is kind of sweet. So we put powdered sugar on it, drizzled it with chocolate, and then he served it with with sliced strawberries and this like caramelized sauce types. Oh my God, it was so good.
But it's got chicken and stuff in it.
Yeah, but it's got chicken in it.
So that's it is insane mix of.
Yes, but it's so good. It was delicious. Like, I ate mine, and I thought I could eat like 5 more. They are so, but they were filling. You had your chicken and all that. It was so good. And it was a cinnamon. It was a cinnamon sauce. Ooh. We made cinnamon. It was cinnamon. A lot of spices in Morocco that I loved. And this had no. It was so flavorful. Everything in Morocco was very flavorful, and I did enjoy that.
I love the flavor.
But that was probably the other thing that I liked the most, the Bastille. I could have another one of those.
Oh, yeah, that sounds really good.
Oh, it was good. It was good.
My goodness.
It was so good. And you wouldn't think that the strawberries and the cinnamon and the sugary flavors would go well, but with the chicken,
it's one of those that like you don't expect, but then once you try it,
it's like a chocolate covered pretzel. It's
but
that sweet and salty. So it's the salty chicken and the sweet.
And I feel like the seasoning on the chicken, it had to be like super deep and flavorful to make it kind of balanced.
Yeah, because it was almonds in there with the chicken, and I think they used cumin and coriander. I mean, he used all kinds of different spices, and it was so good.
That sounds...
It was so good.
I could eat one of those.
Yeah, it was good. It was good, for real. It was delicious.
Now, you speak really, really highly of... from what I've heard, you speak really highly of Morocco and London specifically.
Yeah.
Because those like your two, number one, or number two, kind of like top two.
Well, Morocco is a country. I loved Chefchaouen. Tangier as a city was somewhere I would probably not go again. I did not like... it was very... Like, if somebody helped you or if you asked for help, they immediately expected payment. Like, they didn't do things out of the kindness of your heart. And you worked... It was too hard to buy things because they may have it priced a certain way, and you're expected to go back and forth. You're expected to kind of go back and do that. No, I'll do this, or no, you do this. It's too exhausting. So
Gotcha.
when I speak about Morocco, it's mostly my memories about Chefchaouen and the smaller. Well, I did have that cooking class in Tangier. That was good. But I had a couple negative experiences in Tangier that I was just like, ugh. But I did enjoy the country as a whole. It was beautiful. London as a city is one of my favorite cities. I loved Ireland. Ireland was phenomenal. Norway also was. I mean, all of them are good. They're all good. All the places I've been are good.
That's
They're good. They're
now,
good.
you said there was that one kind of sort of negative experience. Are there any other negative experience that are like significantly negative, not like a slight inconvenience, but more like that you really just didn't really feel like you liked that much? Like you thought you might have liked, but maybe you just didn't. It didn't kind of sit with you right.
Well, I wouldn't say I've had anything like this. Was the taxi driver was rude and stopped in the middle of the road and ordered me out of his taxi because it was.
Where was this?
That was in Morocco.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was in the taxi, and the girl in the airport told me. I asked her. I said, "Okay, I need to get to this place in the city," and she said, "Okay, it'll cost you." I said, "How much will that cost in a taxi ride? And a taxi, if I take the taxi, how much will it cost?" And she said, "That should be 200 dirham." And I said, "Okay, are you sure?" She said, "Yeah, it should be 200 dirham." Great. So I go out there, there's a line, and there's this gentleman, and he said, "Do you need a taxi?" And I said, "Yes, I need to go to wherever I was going." And there was an older gentleman driving the taxi, and he spoke to him in Arabic or whatever language and told him where I was going. And I told the younger gentleman, I said, "Now she told me inside it was going to be 200 dirham." And he said, "Oh yeah, that should be enough." So I'm in the cab, and the guy has very broken English, but I understood him, and we were talking, and he said, I asked him how much it would be, and he said 250 dirham. And I said, "Wait a second." I said, "She told me it was only going to be 200. I was under the impression it's 200. That's all I can pay you." He started yelling, screaming at me. He stopped. We hadn't gone very far, maybe, wow. I don't know, 20 feet from where we parked.
20 feet?
Yeah, and so he stops in the middle of the road, and he gets out, and he's looking at me, and he's yelling, and I'm like, "I don't know." And he gets out of the car, yells back to that younger gentleman something, and the younger gentleman comes back to the car, and I'm like, "I don't know what's going on. All I know is the lady told me the taxi ride would only be 200 dirham, and that's what I was expecting to pay." And then he starts going crazy, and the younger gentleman says, "Well, you're going farther into the Medina, the traffic is tough, so it's probably going to be 250 dirham. And at this point I was flustered, I was tired, I'd been in the plane. I said, "You know what, it's fine, let's just go. So then we go, and he doesn't speak to me, the cab driver, and I don't speak to him. And so I am letting myself chill and relax and just telling myself, it's okay, it's only money, it's fine. So then he gets to my spot, and he changes his tune, and he says, "It'll just be 200. And by this point, I was like, "You know what? Here's your 250. And then he's very gracious and very kind, and I was like, okay, now I've got that experience out of the way. Hopefully that's the last time that'll happen." So that was...
Oh my goodness.
That was really rough.
That just sounds...
It was kind of scary, and it was kind of... Because I was there by myself, and it was obvious that I was a Westerner, and I was not local at all. And so that's the last thing I wanted, is someone to take advantage of me. And so I was trying to hold my ground and stand my ground, but...
Yeah. There's a certain point where it comes a time when it's like, you just got to get out of the situation.
I was just ready to be done.
Regardless of your
Absolutely.
ground, You just got to get out of there and just move on.
Yep. That's where I was at.
Yeah. And you said it was a little bit scary. Like, it wasn't like feared for your life scary, but it was a little just like, whoa.
It was unexpected and just kind of like...
It just kind of shocked you a
little
bit.
Yeah.
Now, are there any experience you've ever had on an adventure that you've genuinely been fearful? Like, that you've actually been like, whoa, am I actually going to get out of this situation?
Yes. I thought I was going to die in Colorado when I went hiking. I was in Grand Junction, Colorado. I was actually there on a trip to get a tattoo and extended the trip for a vacation. So the host very kind, and it was her son. He and his sister told me about places that were nearby to hike and different things like that and trails, and I thought, okay, great. So I picked this hike, and it was 6 miles, but it was 12 miles round trip. And I thought, I've run marathons. I can do a 12-mile hike. That's easy. No big deal. And so I got my stuff. I had a hiking backpack that has a water bladder in it, and I filled that up. And I had 2 small, regular, 16.9 ounce bottles of water as well. And that's what I had. So I get to hiking, and it's a beautiful, bright blue sky, beautiful morning. It's warm, but in this part of Colorado, I should let you know that it's desert. And I didn't realize it was the desert until I just about didn't make it back up to the thing. So I go hiking, and so this hike that I chose, it's at the Colorado National Monument. And so you basically, I parked my vehicle at the top. There's a parking spot, but it comes down the side of the cliff, and you do switchbacks. So you hike this way for a little bit, and you switch, and you go like this all the way down the side of the, basically the side of the rock or the mountain or whatever. So then you do the rest of it basically in a valley. So you do all the switchbacks, and you're going through a valley. It's very dry, it's very arid, but it was a beautiful morning, and I was doing great. And I get to the turnaround spot, and I think, okay, I'm feeling okay. I feel like my water's doing well. I'm good. So I turn around and I go back. Well, by this point, the sun was really beating down, and it was really starting to get hot. I could tell I was getting sunburnt. Of course, I didn't put enough sunscreen on. And every chance I get, I'm trying to lay on. There weren't very many trees. I was trying to lay under these little shrubs. I'd lay on the ground just to get some kind of shade. And so this whole thing was 6 miles one way. So the switchbacks, and then you're in the canyon floor, and you kind of come up a different area, and you cross a creek and all this and other stuff. So I hadn't even reached the switchbacks going back. I wasn't even anywhere near the switchbacks. I think I had just gotten to the creek, so I probably had about, I'd say at least 3 miles left. Maybe more. I was out of water. I ran out of water.
Completely,
it's gone. The bottles were empty. The bladder was empty. And so I thought, okay, I can do this. I have to do this. So I made it across the creek. It was not much of water. It was pretty dry. There was no water. It was just creek bed.
Oh, I was gonna say you could just take some out of the creek.
Yeah, no, you can't do that.
Regardless of how clean it
filter it and all that stuff. Yeah. So I'm getting to the base of the place where I start the switchbacks. And by this point, I'm starting to. I started right as I was getting ready to get on to start the climb back up. I started getting cold. I got goosebumps. And I was sweating, but I was cold. And I thought, that's not a good sign. That means I'm probably going to be dehydrated soon, or I'm getting really, whatever. And so it took so long. Every chance I would go a little bit, walk a few steps, and then I would have to stop because my mouth was so dry. I didn't have any spit to swallow. I would lay under, there were little slight overhangs with the rocks, and I would just lay under there to get some kind of relief from the sun. And then I would walk a little bit more, a few steps, and have to take a break, and I went slow because I knew if I exert myself too much, then it's just, because by this point going up, there were 2 times I stumbled. And I tripped and I slipped, and I thought, okay, I have to go slower because I'm going to fall and I'm going to
be off the rock.
Right, be off, and there I am, dead. So I finally made it to the truck. And in the whole time I was thinking, I know I have some water in the truck. I know I have water in the truck. I know I have water in the truck. So I get to the truck. Praise be, I'm all the way up to the top. I didn't die, but I was so close. I thought I was going to. There's no water in the truck.
Oh.
So I start the truck, I get the air going, and I just sit there in the cool air and let myself kind of get myself composed. And I drive down to the base. At the very entrance of the park, there's a visitor's area, like a picnic area, and I knew there was a water fountain, and I found some crackers I did have crackers in the truck. So I ate on the crackers, and I went over and I filled up my water bottle with the water from the water fountain, and I started sipping on it. I didn't chug it or anything, and I started sipping on it. And as soon as that water hit my stomach, I just got sick. And It was bad. And I was cold, and I was shivering, and I just got back into the, I just sat on the picnic table there for a little bit and laid on the grass even. And I just was like, oh my gosh, I will never underestimate the use of water. Water. You have to have plenty of water.
And you'd rather have too much than
not enough. Oh my God. Like, that was the lesson I learned, and it smacked me square between the eyes. And that was the scariest, like, literally fearful as I was climbing up back out of this. It was scary. That was the scariest I've ever been on anything, thinking I was not going to make it. I did not. I was.
You can't keep that thought in your head, though.
No,
you gotta just keep pushing.
I had to keep pushing, but because I was like, you can't end up a statistics. You can't end up like in a headline of a paper. This Missouri woman falls to her death, and no, I didn't want that to be me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it wasn't you. I'm definitely glad it wasn't. That sounds extremely terrifying.
And that was my own stupidity. That was poor planning on my part, and I learned my lesson hardcore.
Yeah. And now you always
have enough water, and I overpack water, and I encourage those who go hiking, overpack the water.
And see, you pack light, everything else, but overpack water.
When I have, if I have a hiking trip or if I do whatever, I'm filling the bladder plus filling another bottle, keep one in my car, whatever, and I'm not going on a 12-mile hike in the desert by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Not my smartest moment.
But hey, you gotta
you live and learn.
You gotta have those kind of things to learn and make experience. That's a great story to tell. So that's a great story to tell.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this one, but if there's any trip you could ever do, like again, like right now, if you had the opportunity to just leave right this second, where would you go?
Oh, I don't know. I have a lot of places that I still haven't seen that I would like to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe even something that you've been to already. Just something that you really, really enjoy so much that you would do it again in a heartbeat.
Oh, wow. Someplace I've already been that I would do it again in a heartbeat?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
I have a pretty good guess.
Yeah?
We'll have to see.
Well, I don't know, because... Like, I've done London multiple times. I could always go there, but
that was my guess.
I could always go there, but I could also go to like Amsterdam again. I only spent a day there. I would love to go there again and explore more. Could go to Norway again. I loved Norway. New York City. Only been there once.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I want to go there at some point.
Yeah, I only was there for 2 days, so there's so much of the city I haven't seen. I would love to go there again.
Wow. And you were there when it was cold, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there.
It was winter.
Got to see the Christmas tree. That was really cool.
Oh, that must be cool.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I feel like it's something. There's some cool experiences to be had when it's like heat of the year, like rush hour, 24/7, like crazy. Like I feel like that's, even though it's overwhelming, I'm sure. That's a really cool experience. I feel like it'd be cool to take in at one point. Well,
that's kind of what was neat about London, because when I'm in London, I always take the tube. I always want to take the public transportation. Any city I go to, I take the public transit if they've got it. Buses, trains, whatever. It's cheaper for one, and you really get to see how the locals live and how they commute and how they, all that. So hitting the tube at rush hour, it's literally, you get in there and they're pushing people in to get everybody in there, and you at one point you like have your arms up hanging on, and you're like I really am glad that everybody around me sort of kind of doesn't smell that bad. Because I hope I don't smell less than fresh right now, because literally you better not have a big bubble, a space bubble, because during rush hour, especially certain lines,
oh man,
they are just wall to wall people. But I am glad that I've experienced it, because now I know, like, that's, yeah.
That's a thing of the past.
Yeah.
You can't be that close to
not
anymore.
No.
No way.
Of course not. Yeah.
Nah.
So yeah, I would go. There's a lot of places I would go again, but there's so many places I still want to go that I want to experience new places before I start duplicating trips.
Now, do you have like your next trip kind of idea? Like, what's the next one on your bucket list that you would really, really want to go to? I'm sure you've thought of it. I'm sure you've got it halfway planned out already. I have
a couple. One place I would love to go see is Machu Picchu in Peru. I would love to see that. I've been getting some really good flight deals to Peru, so
it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time. And I've never been to South America either. So
South America seems really mysterious to me.
Yeah, it's like the ancient ruins and all of that. That's I mean that's stuff straight out of Indiana Jones, for crying out loud.
Yeah, there we go.
So that's somewhere on my bucket list. I definitely want. It's higher. It keeps moving up higher on my list. And the Swiss Alps, Switzerland, and that's higher up on my list too.
I feel like South America, that would be really cool to limit human interaction. Like, you would just be on your own, just exploring, just wandering, like, just doing your thing.
Well, and I think you would get such a neat, like, the small little villages and all throughout the country.
That'd be really
that would be something I think I would really enjoy. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's about all I've got for you today.
Cool. Great.
Yep. Yeah. Have any closing thoughts? We do this every time. Any sort of closing remarks or words of wisdom?
I would just tell your listeners and your viewers that traveling can seem intimidating, and it can seem scary and huge and all of these things, and it can seem expensive. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you're smart and if you really truly want to travel, there are ways to do it inexpensively, and it can be done. And I encourage everyone to get out of your comfort zone and go, and just go and see. It may be a weekend in a city you've never been in, and that's great because that's something new for you, and that's something you've never experienced.
Sometimes the little things mean a lot too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just go to a new town.
Absolutely, go somewhere that you've never been before, and that's just the way to start.
Yeah, gotta start somewhere. Take baby steps.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks a ton for being on. It's been a great interview, great episode.
Absolutely.
And everybody out there listening and or watching on Spotify, YouTube, anywhere else you get your podcast, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, consider following the podcast or liking on the video and subscribing to the YouTube channel.
And check out The Roaming Eye.
Yep. At blogspot.com.
The Roaming Eye. Yeah, I think it's The Roaming Eye 78. I think at Blogspot.
I'll have all the links to all of our stuff in the description.
And all that good stuff.
I'll have the Instagram, the blog, everything you need to know about Mom here. We'll have it in the description. But thank you guys so much for tuning in today. This has been GareTheBear, and I will see you all again next time.